There was a woman named Estelle, born in the year 1843. Estelle was working as a lady's maid for Countess de la Rochefoucauld. In the year 1875, at the end of May, Estelle was dangerously ill. She was suffering with tuberculosis. At this time, Estelle was 32 years old. Through the influence of her mistress, Estelle obtained admission into a hospital under the care of the Augustinian nuns. She was there in treatment. Towards the end of July, as Estelle's mistress was returning home, her mistress had her brought to their residence near Pellevoisin. At this time, in the month of August, Estelle was very ill, and her doctor, who had been her medical attendant for several years, declared that besides the internal diseases under which she was suffering, her lungs were also affected. And the doctor told Estelle's mistress, "This poor girl is totally unfit for service. She is dying slowly." Estelle was suffering with pulmonary tuberculosis, peritonitis, and an abdominal tumor. While all this was happening, Estelle was praying novenas to the Virgin Mary. A small grotto in honor of Our Lady of Lourdes had just been erected in a nearby park, and so Estelle wrote a letter to the Blessed Virgin and handed it to someone to place it at the feet of Our Lady statue. On 8th February, after a severe attack, Estelle became dangerously ill, and the doctor told her that she only has a few hours to live. 4 days later, on Sunday evening, 13th of February, Estelle asked the parish priest of Pellevoisin to write a letter to her mistress, begging of her to have a candle lit for her intention at the Church of Victories and another candle before the altar of Our Lady of Lourdes. Her request was granted, and candles were lit the following Monday. On the night of February 14, a demon appeared at the foot of Estelle's bed. Just after Estelle spotted the demon, she saw the Blessed Virgin at her bedside. On the night of the 14th to the 15th, that is to say, between Monday and Tuesday, I was very ill. I am not quite sure whether I was asleep or not at the time of the vision. I was trying to get some rest when suddenly the demon appeared at the foot of my bed. He was horrible and at once began to make grimaces at me. Scarcely had I perceived him when our Blessed Lady appeared on the other side at the corner of my bed. She wore a pure white woolen veil which fell in 3 folds. I can never describe how beautiful she was. Her features were regular, her color white and rose tint rather pale. Her large, gentle eyes reassured me somewhat, but not completely, for the demon, perceiving the Blessed Virgin, drew back, dragging the curtain and the iron rod of my bed. Then the Blessed Virgin said to him sharply, "What brings you here? Do you not see that she wears my livery and that of my son?" He disappeared, gesticulating. Then she turned to me and said gently, "Fear nothing, you are my daughter." Then I remembered that from the age of 14, I had been a child of Mary. I now felt less fear. She said to me gently, "Have courage, be patient. My son will allow himself to be prevailed upon. You will suffer 5 days longer in honor of the 5 wounds of my son. On Saturday, you will either be dead or cured. If my son restores you to life, I wish you to publish my glory." I quickly replied, "But how can I do it, who am so insignificant? I know not what I can do." Immediately I saw between her and me a slab of white marble which I recognized as an ex voto. I said to her, "But my good mother, where shall it be placed? Is it in the Church of Victories or at Pellevoisin?" She replied, "At the Church of Victories they have sufficient proofs of my power, whereas at Pellevoisin they have none. They require a stimulus." She then remained a few minutes silent. I promised her to do all that was in my power for her glory. She then said to me, "Have courage, I wish you to keep your promise." And then all disappeared. The second night, the demon reappeared and again I was overwhelmed with fear. He remained, however, a little farther away from me. Almost at the same time, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared and said to me, "Do not be afraid, I am here. This time, my son has allowed himself to be prevailed upon. He grants you life. On Saturday, you will be cured." I replied, "But my good mother, if I had my choice, I would prefer to die, now that I am well prepared." Then the Blessed Virgin said to me, smiling, "Ungrateful one, if my son restores you to life, it is because it is necessary for you. What has he given to man on earth, much precious than life? In restoring you to life, do not believe you will be exempt from suffering. No, you will suffer. You will not be free from sorrow. This is what makes life meritorious. If my son has allowed himself to be prevailed upon, it is on account of your resignation and your patience. Do not, by the choice you make now, deprive yourself of it. Have I not told you, if he restores you to life, you will publish my glory?" Then Our Lady said, "Look at your past life." Her face grew sad, though still retaining its sweetness of expression. I am still covered with confusion at the faults I have committed, although to my own eyes they appeared only slight ones. But I will be silent about what the Blessed Virgin said to me on this subject. I shall merely say that she reproved me severely, as indeed I deserved. I wanted to cry out pardon, but could not. My grief overcame me. I felt stunned. The Blessed Virgin Mary looked kindly at me, and then without speaking again disappeared. Oh, how sad I felt. The third night, I again saw the demon, but he kept so far that I could scarcely distinguish his gestures. The Blessed Virgin said, "Come, take courage, my child." As she spoke, her reproaches of the preceding night recurred to my mind. I felt terror and I trembled. She again reproved me about other matters, but so sweetly that I felt reassured. Then she said, "All this is past. By your resignation, you have expiated these faults." Then she pointed out some good works I had performed. They were indeed very few beside my faults. The Blessed Virgin perceived my trouble, for she said to me, "I am all merciful and the mistress of my son. These good works and some fervent prayers have touched my maternal heart. Among others, that little letter you wrote to me in the month of September. What moved me most was the phrase, 'See the sorrow of my parents. If I fail them, they are on the eve of begging their bread. Remember then what thou didst suffer when thy Jesus was stretched out upon the cross.' I have shown that letter to my son. Your parents have need of you. For the future, try to be faithful. Do not lose the graces which are given to you, and publish my glory." Then Our Lady disappeared. She disappeared, repeating, "You will publish my glory. Make every effort." That night it seemed to me that she did not stay so long. I wanted to ask for her graces, but was unable to do so. My thoughts were racing, and I could see in my mind the words that the Blessed Virgin had repeated. The Blessed Virgin did not remain at the foot of my bed. She approached to the middle of my curtains. My God, how beautiful she was! She remained a long time silent and motionless, standing in the midst of a clear vapor. If it be only a dream, why cannot it last forever? After a long time, she looked at me. She reminded me of my promises. I once more saw the marble slab, but this time it was no longer white. In the four corners there were golden rosebuds. In the highest part, a golden heart emitting flames, transpierced with a sword, and surrounded by a crown of roses. These words were inscribed on it. I called upon Mary in anguish and pain. From her son she obtained for me health once again. Estelle F. 19th of February 1876. I promised her again to do all in my power for her glory. She said to me, "If you wish to serve me, be simple, and let your actions correspond with your words." I asked her if, in order to serve her, it were necessary to change my state of life. She replied, "One can be saved in every state. Where you are, you can do a great deal of good, and you can publish my glory. What afflicts me most is that people have no respect for my Son in the Holy Eucharist, and the way the people pray when at the same time the mind continues occupied with other things. I say this for people who pretend to be pious." I then asked her if I should start straight away to proclaim her glory and tell everybody. The Blessed Virgin answered, "Yes, yes, publish my glory, but before doing so, await the advice of your confessor and director, for people will endeavor to entrap you. They will treat you as a visionary, as a person of disordered imagination, as a fool. But pay no attention to all that. Be faithful to me. I will assist you." Then Our Lady disappeared. There followed a dreadful period of great suffering. My heart seemed to jump out of my body, and I had dreadful pains in my stomach and abdomen. I recollect holding my rosary in my left hand. I offered my suffering up to God. I did not know that this was the last bit of my illness. After a minute of rest, I felt fit and well, wondered what time it was, and saw that it was 12:30. I felt healed. Only my right arm was still useless. About 6:30, the parish priest came, and I sat on the edge of my bed. The priest said that he will say Holy Mass and bring her Holy Communion. After receiving the Holy Communion, Estelle's right hand came to life.